Hello, it's Tea with the Druid, 103, would you believe? And let's have a look. I'll just play with the technology. Here we are, Tea with the Druid 103. Do say when you arrive. It'd be lovely to see you and see where you're from, and I'll know that the sound's working as well. But I'm going to pitch in and start talking anyway, because a lot of you watch the recording. So Cliff, good morning or good evening. Hi, nice to see you. And Dean and Marie and Brian, hooray. Adi from New Zealand, the other side of the world. Lovely to see you, Adi. And Jesse and Richard, hooray. Fantastic. Okay, so I've entitled this session, Could You Be a Hermit? And if you saw the title, I wonder what your initial response was before you thought about it. Was your initial instinctive reaction, yes, actually I could be, or no, I'm just not built that way? The reason I thought I'd like to explore this topic with you is because I'm just back from one of our fantastic weekends in Glastonbury, where a couple of hundred of us get together really just for a day. I mean, we arrive on Friday, most of us arrive there Friday, and so we get to see people in a pub for supper or something. But the day starts and it's just packed from a very, an early ceremony, 8 in the morning at Chalice Well, right the way through till midnight, dancing in the Eisteddfod in the evening in the town hall, and in between all sorts of wonderful things happening. And every time it happens, I'm struck by this mechanism that I want to see if it's familiar to you too, which is there's a part of me that resists socializing. I want to stay at home, particularly in the winter. There's a nice fire going and you want to curl up with a good book or with a telly or have a little snooze. And the thought of actually making the effort to go out is too much. But every time I do it, and of course the other time is when you do an early morning ceremony, you do, say, a dawn ceremony at summer solstice dawn, for example, and there's that little grumpy voice that says, oh, go on, stay in bed. But it also applies to social events too, and you may be familiar with that. You're invited to a party, dinner party or drinks party or something. The part of you doesn't want to go. But my experience of that is if I don't listen to that voice and I make the effort, I always enjoy myself. And in psychosynthesis, we use this concept of subpersonalities, where you get to identify different aspects of yourself, and you can see them as people or as animals, or as so that you kind of get a handle on these different things. So for me, I would separate these out as a dormouse and a socialite. The socialite loving being extroverted, the dormouse being introverted, and so on. But I think it goes deeper than, or we can explore deeper than just the sort of social extroversion and introversion, and the need we all have to be quite private creatures, and the need we have to be creatures who need community and the support and connection with others. I think there's something, there's a way in which, in relationship, when we come into relation, this is why I don't think I could be a hermit. I mean, I've sometimes wondered if I wanted to be a monk or to go and live in a monastery in the Himalayas or Sussex or anywhere. But in the end, I've concluded that no, because there's something that happens in relationship. And of course, it would happen actually in a monastery as well, if you weren't secluded, if you weren't on your own. Is the interaction with people, because something emerges that is more than the sum of the parts, which is why psychotherapy is such an interesting profession too. And so at Glastonbury in the morning, I had a conversation in public, as it were, in the group, with Emma Burke, who's taking over from me as leader of the order from next June. So this is the last kind of public meeting, I suppose, that I will chair in the order, and then from next in June I'll hand over to her, and it'll be her responsibility. So we decided that she could interview me, and there'd be a kind of grilling. And if provided the sound has been recorded correctly, Dave's going to pop it up on Druid Cast. And so we had a great conversation, and it was a conversation in the round with 200 people around us. And the point I'm getting at is that there is something different about that than if I had sat on my own, if she'd emailed me the questions and I'd sat on my own and thought about my answers and written them out. There's something about the moment when two people are facing each other and there's a conversation that something seems to happen if you're open to it, which is precisely what happens in psychotherapy. Now, I know the rather sad finding of some research is that some people would prefer to have counseling from a computer. They've created artificial intelligence programs that can give you counseling, and some people, a significant amount of people, actually prefer that to dealing with a live person. But that's another whole issue. I think the potential that can occur, and I think this is particularly when the therapist has a spiritual view or is a transpersonal therapist. Maybe it doesn't happen with kind of more different kinds of counseling. But certainly in my experience of psychosynthesis counseling and therapy, having a sense of the spiritual beings that we are, there's a kind of magic that can happen. And the interesting thing, and this is what we can explore in our meditation in a little while, the interesting thing is that it's not totally about words. There's something about communicating in words with somebody else that is that allows new thoughts to emerge. So, when I was talking with Emma, I was coming out with things that I hadn't thought of before. And I love that. You have a conversation and you find yourself saying something that you hadn't thought of before. So it helps to mature your thoughts and develop your thoughts and feelings and ideas around something. This is what the transcendentalists, this is what Thoreau and Emerson in New England got onto, which was the power of conversation. This is what education is about too. And so, so the answer is, if I want to grow in thought and feeling, if I want to mature spiritually and psychologically, I need to converse with other people. I need to be in dialogue with other people, and in as deep a way as possible. That's why I say being in a men's group or a women's group, or any other kind of group where the focus is on deep conversation is really, really valuable. And it's supremely bardic as well. It's like you're trying to access deeper layers of the story, not just the superficial story, which is why so much television is so unsatisfying. You watch the kind of crappy television and it's so surface, it's so superficial. The story isn't satisfying. It hasn't got roots that go down into the earth. And of course, these conversations and relationships aren't just between humans. I mean, that's why when we go out into nature, where we can be open to the kind of conversation with the plants and the animals and the natural world, and then of course the other world, if you believe in that and that's part of your spiritual worldview and practice, then I can see there's some really interesting questions. Ruth Flood saying, I've spent a lot of time alone due to ill health. There's definitely something about in-person interaction that is a form of sustenance. Exactly. Forced to engage a lot online. And it happens online too. And one of the absolutely intriguing things about these tea sessions, I have to tell you, is, and I noticed it the first tea session I did when Dave, I had no idea, it would be a weekly event. I just did it as a one-off 2 years ago, just to try it out. And what I found is, although, of course, I'm dominating the conversation due to the fact that I've got the mic and the technology and so on, despite that, there's a sense of conversation that I have because I can glance at your comments and I can hear your voices, and I always read the comments afterwards. And the comments keep coming in over time. Even a year later, people are commenting usually on the YouTube channel, but on other, on Facebook as well. So it's a kind of ongoing conversation. So it's not one way. It's not like I'm filming myself, or one of the guests who appeared on this is filming themselves giving a talk to you. It's not that at all. It is interactive. And so you have to say to yourself, well, okay, what's happening? There's an exchange of information between two people. You're having a conversation. You can go deeper if you don't just stay on the surface, but you try to touch deeper issues and try to be soulful. What's happening? Well, I think what's happening is a third element drops in. There's you, there's me, and there's something else. And what is that? Is that love? Is it consciousness? Is it the other? Is it transcendental? Is it the Arwen? I don't know. But when you do therapy in this way with people, there's really quite, and it doesn't always happen, but there can be moments when you kind of look at each other and you have an interaction, and it's almost as if, well, it is as if some kind of energy comes into the room. You've created a vessel by being authentic and open and engaged and awake as possible and so on, all these things. And that creates some sort of vessel for soul, the spirit, the other to come in. And it's almost tangible. You can feel it in the air. It's very peculiar. And usually both parties know when it happens. Now, if you haven't experienced that in therapy, if or in other situations, the place you get it is when you fall in love, or when you're in an intimate relationship with somebody. You look at somebody in the eye, and there's just something is born, or there's something other about it. And here is something really interesting, I think, because what happens then is the problem of the myth of romantic love comes in, which is the chocolate box ad idea that you fall in love and you stay with this person for all of your life, and it's all sweetness and light. And if you ever get out of sync, or you have an argument, or there's a misunderstanding, it's all over, and the myth shatters, the dream shatters. And we all know people, I guess, who are unable to maintain that. So they have relationships that never last longer than about 18 months, or however long it is for the chemicals to keep going in the brain when you fall in love and are attracted to each other. And then the myth gets shattered. You see the real person, or the other side of the person underneath it, and you're déçu, as they say in French. What's that? You're upset. So disillusioned. And I see Danny is saying, you can also talk aloud when you're alone, or tape yourself talking at random. Well, of course, that's why I think, we do talk to ourselves, and you can sort of develop that into a sort of fine art. Rather than sort of mumbling to oneself, one can actually somehow articulate ideas and so on. Nadine saying, the chance for deep conversation is very rare these days in modern society. I only tend to have them with my husband. Now, I think that's true, but I think we can make efforts to get around that. One is to be the person who is proactive in initiating deeper conversations. And I know I have to be careful with this, because I can be I'm aware of the fact that it can be threatening or strange or annoying to people. But what I'd like to do is, and I hope I do it sensitively, is to, as quickly as possible, kind of try to go deeper with somebody, even in conventional situations. If you're at a party or something like that, it's not always possible, of course, but just to try and open up the conversation so it goes a little bit deeper. So, and that magic of conversation, I was thinking, I've spent the last few months working on a tarot course with Steve Handsome, and Stephanie, and Steve is the mentor coordinator with OBOD. It's going to be released on February the 1st. And it's a fantastic course that it's two courses that we've created. Stephanie and I have done one, and there's one course, but then there's also another course. So we're putting the two together. And the other course with Steve, he's developed a fantastic way of exploring yourself, using the tarot not for divination, but for self-development and self-exploration. So we've called it Transformation Through Tarot. And I'll announce it in the testers are starting to test it now for us. A sort of but that course works with conversation, and you're having dialogues and conversations with images from the tarot, with archetypes and stories that are locked in the tarot that you can unlock and help to free up aspects of yourself. And when I've taken the course myself, I found it very, very healing. So let's now. I want to thank Penny Billington for. I had to be in London last week, and it wasn't as somebody said. I think as Penny thought that perhaps I was saying I had to be in London when I was using the Bernard Shaw trick of calling the writer's hut in the garden London, so that you don't have to lie when you say I have to be in London. No, I wasn't. I was in the real London, the city of London, on Monday, and so Penny gave the guest spot on Tea with the Druid, and thank you so much, Penny, for that. So now let's have a meditation. Let's go deep within, and let's apply this feature of conversation that I mentioned briefly, which was that when we're in relationship and we're having a conversation, it doesn't have to be verbal. Something else is happening at another level. So if I stop talking now, it doesn't mean the conversation has stopped. And again, you have to feel very safe with somebody. And again, that's why it's sometimes you can, it's the person you love because you don't feel threatened and you feel super safe with them and so on. And so you can just look into each other's eyes. But I remember a very touching moment when my father was just before he died, the day before he died, and he was in this house, and he was a real chatterbox, and when he always talked all the time. And I was sitting next to him by the bed, and our two daughters, Sophie and Charlie, were there as well. And he smiled and he said, "Isn't it wonderful? We can be together, but we don't have to talk." And this was a remarkable thing for him to say. It's kind of obvious to many of us, but for him, this was this huge revelation that he got on the day before he died, which is that you could just bathe in each other's presence. So perhaps what we're talking about is presence. So let's do that now. Let's go into presence, into awareness together. And if you feel like having a meditation now, then do join me, or just watch and try it later if you feel drawn to it. And you might like to close your eyes to better concentrate on yourself. I'll occasionally open them to make sure we still have our internet connection, so I don't lose that. And just in closing your eyes, take in a slow, deep breath. Hold it for a second, and then breathe out fully and deeply. Do it one more time. Breathing in slowly and deeply. Hold for a moment, and breathe out slowly and fully. You're aware of yourself seated in front of a computer or the screen, but there's a way in which you can allow your awareness of that to fade as you become aware of being seated in a beautiful clearing in the forest, in a sacred grove of the Druids. And the earth is beneath you, and you can smell the earth. And you see the trees around you, the sky above you. There's a little fire burning. Perhaps it's dusk. The sky is that beautiful blue that's turning to indigo, the first stars coming out, and a little fire burning and crackling in the center of the circle. And you're seeing people arriving from all sorts of different directions, and you know as they arrive that they're friends. There's a feeling of warmth, of community, as they come, and they just nod gently to you with a smile and sit down too. And so you realize this is a sacred gathering, a grove meeting, as the Druids call it, when they come together in a circle, sitting around a fire. You can smell the wood smoke now. And as people arrive, it's as if the warmth of the fire is becoming also the warm atmosphere as we gather together in community. And you can see the smiling faces, and some people are looking at you and smiling and then closing their eyes. And you know that you're going into a meditation together. And just enjoy the presence of this community, of this circle of companions seated on this earth around this fire. And as you close your inner eyes and you experience this warmth of community and connection, you feel held by the earth beneath you, the trees around you, the starlight and the moonlight above you. And you feel moved to just gently stretch out your arms to either side of you. And you feel the hand of the person to your left and to your right, taking your palm in their palm. And so as you sit there, you feel connected to the entire circle through this simple act of holding hands together in the circle. And then you just hear everybody quietly and gently saying this vow that we call the Druid vow in our ceremonies, and it goes, "We swear by peace and love to stand, heart to heart and hand in hand. Mark, O Spirit, and hear us now, confirming this our sacred vow. We swear by peace and love to stand, heart to heart and hand in hand. Mark, O Spirit, and hear us now, confirming this our sacred vow." And then everyone chants the Awen, this lovely sound of Awen that means blessings of the gods, that brings inspiration. And the voices rise and fall in harmony. And the voices bring that sense of connection too. It's as if the voices can meet and marry and mingle in the ethers, in the air around you. And then, with just a gentle squeeze to either side of your hands, you just let go of the hands to either side of you, and you bring your hands down into your lap. And then you place your hands on the earth. You feel the earth beneath you. and you give a blessing to the earth, a blessing on our lives. And then you close your inner eyes and you just allow your awareness of the circle of community to fade. And you allow your awareness of the sacred grove to begin to fade as you become aware of being seated in front of your screen, gradually allowing yourself to open your eyes, to feel fully present here and now. Anita Fisher is saying that tea with the Druid is frozen here. And I immediately thought her cup of tea was cold. She was nursing a very cold cup of tea, but I think she meant the internet. But nobody else is saying that. And it seems to be working. So I could almost hear everyone, says Kit. Lovely. Quite surprising to see some people I never saw before here and now. Marianne says that. I really felt hands in mine for the moment, says Julie. Yeah, it's mysterious, isn't it? It's almost like we could do a silent meditation. Maybe one day we'll try that. Just sit in silence together for 20 minutes. So have a fantastic day. I'm so looking forward to reading your comments. Marie says, I truly felt the connection. I felt warm energy in my receptive hand as I held out my arms to connect with the circle. You know, in Druidry, we do very simple things. You know, when we come together, like the weekend at Glastonbury, you know, we start off, you know, by doing exactly that. You know, 200 of us. There were people from Greece and Italy, and Portugal, and America, and the United States, and I'm going to forget a country now, but I don't know. You know, a few other countries too, Jersey, and Germany, and so and we, you know, we hold hands. We do just that. We sing the Arwen and we say that simple little vow. And it changes the atmosphere, even if there were quite a few new people to the gathering, and you know, I think they felt it too. I was talking to somebody who was new to the gathering from the last one, the last summer gathering, and she said how wonderful it was to come into that warmth. And so we've you know, that's been set up just with that simple little thing. And you see how this simple meditation, which probably took about, I don't know, 7 minutes or something like that, you can get some of that feeling too. So have a lovely week, and I hope your dormouse has plenty of time to curl up and snooze by the fire, and I hope your socialite has plenty of time to go out. Joe was at the gathering, and we first met her in Glastonbury High Street dressed like a flapper. You know, those lovely 1920s flappers with, I don't know, a scarf and hat and everything like that. The archetypal socialite. So I hope your socialite has lots of fun, and you have a wonderful week. And I look forward to seeing you next week. So lots of love, many blessings, and I look forward to reading your comments. Okay, bye.